Welcome to another episode of our Eat and Drink Real Estate Podcast. My name is Scott Burgess, and today I'm here with my favorite combo of all time, an attorney and a broker, Kathleen. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Andrea, thanks for coming here today.
Thanks for having me.
So now you guys kind of have a unique relationship. We were just talking about this prior, of how you guys met and actually technically started working together, maybe in a different sense than what most people think. You want to kind of talk about that?
Sure. It was back in 2014.
Oh, I didn't know the year.
Yeah. I had sent Kathleen's office a resume. I was looking to apply as a legal assistant position. And probably after a couple of months, I finally sweet talked her and she finally hired me.
Which was a good move on my part.
And we pretty quickly formed a really good relationship. And, I had a lot of background. I previously was in lending, previously worked for an attorney negotiating short sales and foreclosures.
Oh, wow.
I worked for a Prudential financial advisor, so I had stuff to bring to the table, but I really liked the idea of working for a law firm, and it was a pretty good fit, and it was a wonderful place to work for 5 years. So.
Yeah?
Yep.
So now does that help when you're dealing with her on the broker side of things?
Dealing with me.
We have a good relationship. I mean, when she decided that she wanted to become a real estate broker, she came to me and gave me a 6-month notice. I mean, who gives you 6 months?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Kudos.
So I was very happy about that. That helped me. And also, I really thought it was going to be a good fit for her because I saw the potential in her as much as I hated to lose you. And the office isn't the same without you because you're quite funny. But it's and very energetic too. I knew it was going to be a good thing for her, and she has rocked it since then. She has soared higher than I expected, and I'm very proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So now,
I wanna cry.
Don't cry.
so that experience, obviously, that's probably a different background than most people, getting into being a real estate broker are familiar with. What kind of stuff, what kind of insight does that give you when you're dealing just with real estate in general, not necessarily a buyer versus a seller, but just are there certain things that you kind of like alarm bells for you, or hey, here's stuff we absolutely need to cover that maybe other folks don't necessarily look at? Or
I think it does, and when I start talking with buyers, I think that's one of the biggest things of value that I bring to them because I can kind of walk the walk and talk the talk. I've been on the lending side, I've been on the legal side. I know the things to look for, the things to avoid. I think it helps when I'm structuring offers for sellers. And when I'm in a difficult situation with the lender, I can be like, hey, can we try this? And I didn't even think about that, and it works. Or, I can call Kathleen and say, hey, we have this issue. I think we can resolve it this way. It just really helps kind of start in a good position, and even in the most difficult situations, we can still get it done.
I think it makes you well-rounded.
It does. And I think people appreciate that because I can talk from all sides of it and really make them feel like, okay, this girl definitely has my best interest on all levels, so we're good to go.
And it kind of maybe you're thinking about things ahead of time that maybe consumers who are buying or selling don't necessarily think about before coming to you, and you're trying to preempt a lot of those possible issues, I guess.
Right. And even as a new agent, it's really hard to get out there and get business because you don't have experience, but really I did because I've seen it all in real estate.
Yeah.
I do have real estate experience. I didn't necessarily have it as a new agent, but even my first year, I did $3.5 million my first year, I think, and that was because 6 months, I gave you 6 months notice, so that was from May to December. I just hit the ground running, and I think a lot of that has to do with because I did have that experience, so I had an advantage going into real estate.
Sure.
So.
Well, now, one of the big things, obviously, in the last several weeks that everybody's been talking about has been this settlement with NAR. So is there one of kind of the common viewpoint that's developing now is buyer's agents have to come in with essentially a value proposition the way listing agents always have since the dawn of real estate.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean to you? How do you approach that? How do you bring that into the transaction now?
Well, I think first of all, there's two main things that have changed with the whole thing. One, it's forcing agents to have a buyer representation letter, which you should have really been having with buyers anyway.
Yeah.
It's very common for a buyer to talk to 5 different agents at the same time. You know, maybe you're running them around, showing them 20 properties, and then they end up writing with somebody else, which is a waste of your time. So it's good practice anyway to have an agreement in place. You know, 2, now there's going to be a little bit of a change in money. You know, if you're not getting a buyer's commission, how are you going to make that happen?
Sure.
And if you have good negotiation skills and you're able to work with the sellers and you're able to speak, you know, directly to your buyers and have a good relationship with your lenders, it really shouldn't be that hard. I mean, I negotiate closing cost credits all the time. So if you have negotiation skills and you already have good practices in place, this might not be that big of a change for, you know, buyer's agents. It's going to have to adjust their sales a little bit, but it's just good practice. So I don't think it's going to be as ugly as people are anticipating it. I'm hearing a lot of horrible things on social media and everywhere, and it's really scary. I think buyers are kind of pumping the brakes because people are seeing this stuff come up on the news and stuff. And it's just about having conversations with them and letting them understand what's really going on and how you're going to make it happen for them and how you can still make it happen for them. So,
yeah, I think there's a lot of misconception as to what's going on or what's really happening or how things are going to play out and stuff like that. And none of us really know what's going to happen. However, I do see that there's huge value in having a buyer's agent. You know, it's just, it's somebody that's like basically totally on your side. You know what I mean? And they're the ones that are trying to, you know, get us all, which is what our common goal is as an attorney, as an agent, as the lender. Our common goal, the title company, our goal is to get us to the closing table, make your buyer happy, make your seller, you know, happy as well.
Yeah,
somebody gets a key, somebody gets a check, you know what I mean? And that's kind of, you know, what their goal is I want to sell my house and I need the money. And so to do that, you know, you need people on your side and advocating for you.
Right. And one of the things I like to do is I'm very loyal. Like, I don't bounce around to a bunch of lenders. I don't bounce around to a bunch of attorneys. You know, I don't always have 100% control on who people go through. But, you know, Kathleen is my attorney and my lender. They know that you're my person. And I think when I tell buyers that and I explain why, that does bring a lot of value to them too, because a lot of them are first-time home buyers, or they don't have an attorney, or they don't have a lender, they don't know where they're going. So I'm able to provide some direction for them and clarity. And then my team already knows how to work really well together, so then it just makes the process very smooth and streamlined for them, and we get to the table. And
does that kind of help them get a little confidence, whether they're buyers or sellers, of you talking about, hey, here's my person?
It does. Like when I tell them, hey, I worked for Kathleen for 5 years, I was her legal assistant, and I've been working with my lender for 6 years straight, and I've been working with my, you know, my inspector for 6 years straight. There's really no question. So it's definitely helped things, and it's the same people that I'm working with all the time. I have a great rapport with them. I think they have a lot of the same values I do. So then my buyer gets all that value, which is great.
Now, are there certain things that you maybe do different with buyers versus sellers? Is there maybe a different path that you take with them, or is it really just you're communicating up front, hey, here's what we need?
Communication, I am huge on. I always, no matter what, make sure that people hear back from me within an hour. It's even on my voicemail.
Oh, wow.
I don't like to leave people hanging. I think one of the biggest things you can do is not respond to someone because they're already elevated emotionally and they're freaking out because, oh my God, I'm buying a house, or oh my God, I'm selling the house, so what am I going to do? And when you stop that communication, they're in a world of panic. So it takes me 30 seconds to make them feel better. Just call them back. If you get, it's rare to get my voicemail anyway. I'm usually always picking up my phone. But I am huge on communication. And I think that's not only helped with buyers and sellers, but I've really gotten a good rapport with other agents as well who love working with me on the other side. I don't look at agents like you're my enemy. You're helping me get this across the line just as much as I am.
Yeah, we have a common goal.
Yeah.
It's a partnership, right?
Absolutely.
And obviously that you've obviously developed that over years, where you feel, hey, if we're working more together,
yes,
and the other party feels that, like, okay, maybe you could get something that maybe another agent that handled it differently wouldn't have gotten.
Right. And I can tell you, I've been in multiple offer situations with buyers, and an agent has worked with me and knows how I work and my team and how I get things done, and it helps me win bids for them. So that's definitely something that, you know, I know how to negotiate, but I also know how to have good relationships on the other side, which is going to help my buyers as well.
So sometimes you may not have, I guess for lack of a better term, the best offer or maybe the highest offer.
Right.
But you get chosen because the other agent knows, okay,
'Cause you have
we've got
value.
a full contract, we've
Right.
got people in place. This isn't kind of a willy-nilly.
Right.
We'll
Or you
figure it
have
out.
two of the exact same contracts, and
Mhm.
the deal breaker is they know that it's going to get done with me, and they don't have the confidence in the other agent. So I think it's huge.
Or don't know them.
Right. It's huge
Yeah.
to have that confidence coming from the other side for sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now we're talking about the contract here. So one of the things we were discussing on before we started all this was making sure that thing, there's certain things you're looking for in a contract. Do you want to talk about what you're like
Yes.
specifically? Here's not pet peeves, but like here's what I need.
I mean, they're pet peeves a little bit, but one of the things that obviously I learned working with Kathleen is making sure the contracts are complete, not leaving any blanks on that contract. Those contracts are built equally to represent the buyer and seller, and everything that you have filled out on there is not only going to make your job better, it's going to make the attorney's job better, and your clients are protected because all of those items are filled in. You know what you're offering from the get-go. You're not doing the bait and switch where I'm going to fill out half the contract, and then after we get the attorney review, everything's changing because nothing was done. And you're just making the attorney's job that much more difficult because, in essence, they're then negotiating the terms of the contract with you instead of you having that done up front. And it's not fair. I don't think it's good practice. And it's just kind of looks a little sloppy when
Makes
you're
your
putting
job
out something
easier
like
too,
that.
right?
Well,
Is
to
that-
me, it solidifies the deal. It's
Yeah.
like we all know what we're going to do. We all know what we've agreed to. We
Yep.
didn't agree to the blank line. We agreed to whatever is in the blank line. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then sometimes as an attorney, I find it hard when there are blanks that haven't been filled in. How do I try to negotiate them in my attorney review, and I get shut down. If you need post-closing possession. Oh, yeah, well, I figured the attorneys would figure that out. I mean, I've had that said to me several times, and I'm like, but this is a contract that you guys are negotiating
Right.
and getting into.
You're liable for
If they had questions when they were filling the contract out, I am always available to talk to the agent to say, well, this is what you should do, or this is how you should fill it out, or to help them give them advice as to what to put in there. So if you're ever confused while you're in negotiations, call me, text me. You know what I mean?
So obviously the communication between both of you is paramount, and that, hey, there's a blank line, or maybe they don't know, they left it blank because they didn't know how to respond.
Right.
Like,
Or-
could this affect my offer? Could this affect what we get as an offer price?
Right. And I think when you are in multiple offer situations, it is imperative to have those complete because what are you really negotiating? There's more than 2 or 3 points on a contract that you're negotiating.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
can sway the deal. So
Your biggest points that most people look at are, what is my sale price? Am I giving concessions? And when's my closing date? And,
Yep.
it's a 13-page contract.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more stuff in there than just those 3 items, That's just the first page.
right.
And there's a lot of other stuff on the second, third, fourth page, and a lot of expectations and, is this as is? And there's been so many times when I've had sellers going, well, this is as is. Okay, well, your agent didn't fill that out. Do you know what I mean? And it needs to be filled out because it's not as is. And you signed a contract that's not as is. So
Yeah.
for me to try to make it an as is in the attorney review doesn't happen sometimes. The other side says no,
Right.
So
Now, we were talking earlier, you said you had a specific instance where having a filled out contract or paying attention to the details actually turned out in your
benefited
favor.
you, yeah.
Yeah. It was another multiple offer situation. All the buyers were cash. So in the listing, in the broker comments, the agent had, we will only review complete contracts, which
Okay.
I wasn't worried about because mine are anyway, but I, of course, paid extra attention to detail to make sure that was done. And I ended up winning the bid on that one. And the agent called me personally to say that, thank you for actually reading it and understanding what we wanted. And that's pretty much what won me the deal on that one.
So simply just following directions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right, so now we've been talking about the contract. You've obviously got some advantages from getting the thing filled out and just simply following instructions, which sounds silly but pays off. Let's talk about the buy side first. Is there certain things that you're looking for that are maybe cues for you that when you're making an offer that are going to be more important to you or less important, anything along those lines?
Like what?
anything as far as, things you want to make sure, you're obviously, you talked about having a complete contract.
Mm-hmm.
Are there things that you think are maybe more important coming from the buyer side, or are there things that you really key in on that side as opposed to the listing side?
Like surveys, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times I'll actually call the listing agent and be like, here's my terms, is this even going to fly? I know they can't always tell me what they're looking for in a contract, but I like to have a conversation with the listing agent beforehand just to kind of feel out what exactly is the seller looking for. And I want to communicate that with my buyer. Sometimes buyers want to go in with a really low offer that's going to insult the seller, but they really want the house. So I need to have that conversation with the listing agent so that they can kind of guide me as much as they can possibly guide me before we put the offer in too. So again, it's opening those lines of communication to make sure that we're doing it correctly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about on the listing side? When you get offers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put yourself, the other shoe on the foot, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
What things are you looking for when you're on the listing side and somebody submits an offer? Obviously, it's got to be complete. We just talked
Right.
about that. But are there other things you kind of key in on, or?
I do love complete contracts because I want to make sure I'm getting a full, complete offer, and I want to understand what that offer is.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do have multiple offers, I need to sit and have an intelligent conversation with my sellers and explain what the differences are and why this offer may be better to go with than this offer.
Okay.
The other thing is I will call and have a conversation with the buyer's lender, because maybe the terms on the contract are not really the terms that they're actually agreed for, and there's a little bait and switch going on. And I want to make sure that they are actually approved and they are solid. So, you kind of just got to go the extra mile and make sure that this is in fact going to be a good contract. I mean, things fall apart, things happen.
Sure.
But making it as less stressful for the seller as possible is good too, because there's a whole different level of stress on their side as well. So.
And one of the things we were talking about prior was just surveys, and kind of in some areas that's a bigger deal for certain folks.
Mm-hmm.
Is what sort of things have you seen with surveys? Like what kind of makes or breaks it? I mean, obviously either having one or not, but.
I think there's certain counties that focus on, we don't need a survey, we don't need an attorney, it's not important, we can save some money.
Mm-hmm.
But even having a little bit of a legal background with Kathleen, there's very ugly things that can come up with not having a survey. What kind of encroachments you have and where the easements are, and does someone have a shed on my property line, and is there a building that's not even supposed to be on the property that's on the property? And I think not having those surveys done, while it saves you a little bit of money up front, could turn into be a really big expense later on that you might not be aware of.
And litigation.
Yeah. And I worry that in some of those counties where they're kind of cramming it down sellers' throats to not do the attorney or to not do the survey because they're saving money, that's going to end up being a big, expensive legal headache for people. So on both sides, sellers and buyers, I really tried to hammer out the importance of not only doing the survey but having attorney representation too.
Yeah.
Because I've seen.
Have you had that where folks come in and say, "Hey, I don't need Kathleen. I don't need an attorney. I'll do
Yes,
this on my own."
all the time.
How does that go?
Well, I usually can be like, let me tell you why you need an attorney.
Yeah.
I've worked for one for 5 years. These are some of the ugly things that I've seen happen, and I can tell you it's probably the best $500 or $600 that you'll ever spend in your life by having this attorney. Not only that, but I am not an attorney. I don't even pretend to play one on TV. I don't want to get into the legalities of anything. My job is to, do this from the real estate standpoint, and then they need to use their legal expertise to guide you on what they need to do. There's a very gray line that I think some agents walk with that, and I don't. I leave the legal stuff to the legal stuff and the real estate stuff to me. So.
Do you have people that kind of come to you and say, "Do we need you"?
No, because by the time they get to me, they realize they need me. But there's a lot of times, like just as a buyer, like when you're negotiating a contract and maybe you've requested some repairs, and in fact, I'm representing a client right now where it's an FHA deal. The seller took an FHA deal, and FHA required a foundation inspection to be done.
Yeah.
Because there was some water in the crawl space, and the buyer wanted to split the cost of getting this, structural thing with my buyer, and I said, that's not your job. I go, they took your contract, they're not maintaining their home, that's their responsibility to make sure that their home is structurally sound, because you're not going to get a loan without it. And I said, hold your ground, stand there, don't pay for half of it. I said, if he wants to sell this house, he will get the structural done. Well, they got the structural done, it's structurally sound, we're good to go. And so we're moving forward, but there's no money out of my client's pocket. If there was problems, and maybe there was $10,000 worth of structural issues in there.
Yeah, that changes
At that
the deal.
point, then, maybe we don't want to buy this and we want to be denied our loan because, we don't want to buy a structurally unsound house. So there's just a lot of or I've had clients that have come to me recently that say, I'm done with I'm done with this negotiation. They're just not giving me what I want. How do I get out of this? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so timing is very key on these contracts because there's certain time frames that have to be adhered to, and you can't just say on day 3, well, they didn't give me what I want, so I'm getting out. Well, you're kind of under contract right now, and you have to follow what you've contractually agreed to.
Yes.
And then once we get to that point, then we can get you out of it. Do you know what I mean? But we don't want you, because we want to get your earnest money back if you're not going through. You know what I mean? And we want you to buy something that's structurally sound. So that's, if it means we got to cancel your contract, we need to do it in a legal way, in a proper legal way, and state the right things so that we can turn around. Because,
If you don't,
doesn't
usually go
then there's
well.
usually earnest money disputes going on, and now your $1,000 or whatever you've put down as earnest money is tied up for a little while until we can work that thing out. And so it's important to move things along and to make sure you get good legal advice as to how you want to proceed in your contracts.
Right.
So it sounds like, from everything you've been saying today, it just seems like that whole team approach is it seems central to what you're talking about. Is that a fair statement? I mean, having a team, what's the difference between just you being a great broker and you're on your own, essentially, as far as you'll work with kind of anybody, you don't specifically have an attorney, a lender, an inspector, all that stuff. How has that team approach affected you? I mean, what's your thought process with that?
I definitely think it's a huge piece of value that I bring to my clients because they know that I've worked with these people forever. They're people that I know and trust and that are going to take really good care of them as well. There was one instance, a property that I closed and the other agent couldn't figure out how to get it done. I was representing the buyer. She was on the listing side and she's like, oh, we can't do it. I'm like, what do you mean we can't do it? We can do it because of this, this, and this. And I know that, if I need my lender, if I need Kathleen, even if it's on a weekend or something, when I hate to bother them, I know I can call them and be like, we have a problem. I need to know what to do.
Okay.
And I knew that it could be resolved, and it did get resolved, and we did end up closing, but I like knowing that I'm going to call you and that you're going to pick up the phone and that I don't have to wait 3 days to hear back from you. That's important to me, and it's really important to my buyers because, again, they're so emotionally involved in this that I need to kind of calm them down too. So,
do buyers and sellers, do they buy into that rationale that you're giving them to say, hey, listen, this is why we need this team? It's not just that I know Kathleen or I know who the lender is or my inspector. It's that if for some reason we need to communicate on a Saturday or Sunday, I can call XYZ and they pick up.
I think that's huge. And I normally their response is, whoever you trust, I trust.
Okay.
Which is big because I sell all of them in the beginning because it's important and it makes my job easier that they all work well together. And when my job's easier, then things get done easier and smooth, and I have good relationships with people. I think it takes one person on the entire transaction, no matter what side you're on, to ruin it for everybody. So whatever I can do for my clients to keep everything moving smoothly, that's what we need to do. And I definitely think having that team and them working with people I like and trust is hugely beneficial.
And I'm assuming, Kathleen, you found the same as far as having that team. It's just you've got somebody you can rely on, essentially.
Well, it's somebody that I know that knows what they're doing, and then if they don't feel like they're comfortable enough to come to me to say, hey, well, how do I handle this, or do you have any ideas? I mean, it's also kind of like a powwow, like, you know what I mean? Like, two heads are better than one, do you know what I mean? Whereas, like, hey, well, what do you think of this, or what do you think of that? And, try to bounce ideas off to actually, move this thing forward and get it done. And see, okay, well, can we do it this way? Can we do it that way?
Yeah.
And it's helpful to have that communication, and that was always a big thing with my office that I tried to instill in my staff. That communication is very key. I try to instill it in the with all of the realtors that I work with. That is very important to me to communicate because I feel like a lot of attorneys dismiss the realtors as to, okay, well, you gave me the contract, now you're done. You know what I mean? Whereas They know the client better than I do. They've been driving around in a car with them for, or walking through houses with them for days. You know what I'm saying?
Or fielded a million questions before you even got to the offer.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and they know each other a little better. So a lot of times I'll just call the realtor first before I even call the client and say, okay, where are we at with this? And how does the client, what do you think, and because they know them better than I do, because, unfortunately, the way my office work, or the way my position works is I usually don't meet them until the end, that, I have a better understanding of who that individual is, and I can tailor my lawyering to help them and make them, more comfortable, move and, make it a smoother transaction, because that's all we want.
Sure. So what else do you, other than the real estate stuff, I know we talked a little bit about kind of charity work, kind of fundraiser stuff. Talk a little bit about what you do outside of real estate, but maybe kind of helps pertain to that a little bit.
Yeah. So recently, probably within the last 6 months or so, I've gotten into dog rescue. I work with a woman out of Kankakee County. I actually help her run her website, which I think we have like 15,000 followers right now.
Holy cow.
Yeah, we are involved with helping people find lost pets and humanely trapping them if we need to, and promoting them and stuff. So I'm a huge animal lover. If I was into real estate, I'd be probably working at a zoo or something somewhere. I have a zoo at home.
Or on a farm.
Yes. And my kids are a little older, and they don't necessarily need me in the same capacity that they did when they were younger. Pretty much just money in an Uber somewhere. So it gives me a little time.
They can feed themselves. They're fine.
Yes, they can. If they can't, they'll get hungry enough to figure it out. It gives me a little bit more time to do some of the things that I enjoy doing, and in return, I think it's an awesome way for me to kind of build rapport with people too. Because even in just casual conversation, oh, you're a real estate agent, and I'm helping you save your dog, and now people are, well, if you're going to come out here and help me save my dog, something that's really important to me, I now like and trust you, and I would love to work with you in different aspects too. That wasn't my intention going in. It's not necessarily why I do it, but I have found that that's been a connection for me. And
people respond
absolutely
pretty well to that.
Yeah.
It sounds
and I like being involved in the community and finding
Yeah.
ways when I do have some time to help things out. I'm actually planning on, I'm in the process of planning a fundraiser for a local charity, doing like a huge food drive and adoption event for the end of the year.
Okay.
And getting my business affiliates involved with that as well, which gives them exposure to.
Wow.
And something that I'm really excited and passionate about, and I can't wait to get it done. So.
Well, it sounds like it, yeah.
Yeah.
So Andrea, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you? Cell phone, text, email, what
Yes,
do you,
my cell phone
social media?
My cell phone is literally attached to my hip. I try to give myself an hour or two to eat, maybe sleep every now and then, but
Every couple days?
yeah. I'm huge on social media. People can always find me on social media. I'm always posting fun things on there, and
we'll have it in a link down below for folks so they
Yep.
can see it on the QR code there.
yes.
Kathleen,
absolutely.
easiest way to get a hold of you?
Probably through my office.
Okay.
It's, I have staff there that's there from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So a lot of times I could be, out in a closing or doing a podcast, and I'm not available to speak with. So reaching out and getting a hold of my staff, and if, and then of course I will step in as well when need be. But
Well, obviously having a broker that knows your cell phone is
yeah.
huge.
I can get
Well,
on
I
that.
usually give out, I give the brokers my cell phone because they don't call for just nothing.
No, and I usually try not to bother you on a Saturday or Sunday unless I really have an issue. But it is nice to have that option
Mm-hmm.
to be like, listen, I'm sorry to bother you. Please just answer a question for me, and I will go away and we can talk Monday. But again, that just brings value to our buyers and sellers
yeah,
too.
and that, and it could be like you said, a multiple offer situation. How to, maybe helping you out getting to that next level, or to get that
Right.
offer looked at and approved, and do you think this is possible, kind of thing.
Right.
So
Yeah, the issue won't make it to Monday. It's got to be
no,
solved.
yeah, you
Right.
can't
Today.
wait till Monday.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have any problem being communicating with agents and stuff like that over the weekends at all nights.
Great.
Yeah, there's many a time when I'm watching TV, I'm like, well, hold on, let me turn off my Bravo.
Well, fantastic. Andrea, thank you so much for coming out and sharing some time with us
Thanks for
today.
having me.
Kathleen, always good to see you. Thanks so
you.
much, guys.
Thank you.
All right.